So if you are going to consume animal products, what's the difference between consuming ones that have been grass-fed and ones that have been fed with conventional feed?
Well, this is something that has been a recent conversation. 10 years ago, grass-fed wasn't a conversation that you had versus conventional feed. And the reason was and is that factory farmed, beef production or meat production is it doesn't allow for these animals to be out in pasture and eat grass. There's no space for it. If you've ever driven, when I lived in California for so many years, I would take a drive and pass by this particular ranch, and you would see the cattle out there, and you smelled it before you saw it.
Yeah.
It's definitely intense, but a lot of cattle and not a lot of land.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a very simple way that you can maximize your profits by minimizing the amount of land you're using. And in the livestock industry, it's very simple. You create relatively small containers. You bring the feed in the form of grains.
Yeah.
And also, you can also bring in some hay product. You can bring in, some things that can be, that are brought in, but a lot of it is grain fed.
Yeah.
And this allows you to, use a very small space to produce a lot of pounds, a lot of weight in beef or meat. So, as you can imagine, there are some really straightforward downsides to this type of business. This procedure, if you will, this way of doing business is full of, in a way, unforeseen. But if you maybe stopped and took a moment, foreseen, but a lot of unforeseen side effects. One being that the animals get quite sick because of the very small conditions that they're kept in.
Yeah.
So, no animal has been designed by nature to be corralled into a very small enclosure and not have space to, use the bathroom. The amount of fecal matter and urine just sort of sitting, about,
Right.
that then gets consumed, that then gets into any kind of wounds on the animals, that finds its way as anything that is full of bacteria, which is the real issue.
Yeah.
Anything that has that much, potential for bacteria, that is just simply being stepped through and picked up and passed about. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Of potential dangers, which is why antibiotics become such a go-to for this industry. The antibiotics keep the animals from getting sick because the environment you put them in is basically a petri dish, and you can almost guarantee the cultivation of sickness and
Right.
dis-ease within
Yeah.
it, because the animals are also not happy.
Yeah, of course not.
So their immune systems are already lowered because of the lack of just freedom and movement and
Yeah.
joy, and I know this is a bit of a personified statement to say joy, but it's been observed many, many times that animals, cows included, jump for joy when they actually, and I say jump for joy, they jump and they seem to take great pleasure. If you just observe them, they seem to take great pleasure in freedom and playing and roaming like any other animal does.
Right.
I know humans have no problem saying that our animals seem to be happy when we give them this,
Right.
or sad when we do that.
Yeah.
Cows are no exception to that. They are clearly expressing some type of satisfaction with an environment and a dissatisfaction with another.
Yeah.
So that's just not debatable. All of these cows sitting in these petri dishes, being given all these antibiotics, and then there was at one point the mad cow book that had come out where it was very common for them to be fed blood meal from other cows as a protein source, which, again, you're feeding an animal that is not an omnivore. It is an herbivore. It does not eat meat.
Right.
You're feeding it blood meal, which in essence is an animal product, to an animal that is not biologically designed to consume that.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you have other issues that arise from that as well. So, at the end of the day, this is just such a shit show in every way, Then conversely, the way that animals are raised oftentimes in other countries such as Austria, which I spent a lot of time in Austria and Germany, they allow their cattle to feed off of grass because, of course, that's their natural diet. And now, of course, they have the ability to do it because they have more land available and they have less population to feed. But more than anything, what it produces is a healthier animal that lives outside most of the time and gets to enjoy its natural diet. So when you really think about the kind of animal you would want to eat or consume, it's not going to be the animal that has been placed in this very small container, standing around in its own fecal matter,
Of course.
suffering.
Yeah.
And yet this is the, of course, this is the lion's share. This is the greater portion of meat consumed in the United States on a daily basis by far.
Yeah.
So grass-fed, if you're going to consume meat, absolutely grass-fed is a superior choice. I think it's superior for more than one reason. It's more than just the fact that you are consuming a healthy animal, but you're also supporting the farming behavior and methods of a farm that is more concerned with the cow.
Yeah.
The cattle deserve freedom to roam and move and live.
Yeah.
And this idea that you would birth them and that they would suffer from the minute they're born until the minute that they are killed, of course, it's in contrast to everything that human beings, I think, as a collective would probably just vote against. If you sat us around and you said, okay, guys, how do you want these animals to be treated? I'm pretty confident that 99.9% of the population would be for ethical treatment of these animals. But because we are disconnected from the process, and we only see the product,
Yeah.
and we don't have to witness the suffering, we don't have to be connected to it in any way, then we just do what is convenient. So everything about human consumption is based on convenience for the most part.
Right.
So when you support grass-fed, you're obviously supporting a different way of interacting with these animals, and a different way of raising them, and a different way of even killing them and consuming them. I mean, again, to each his own. Each person has to decide where they stand on this. But as an omnivore, of course, you and I, we're fully capable of eating, grass or plant-based foods, grass, wheatgrass, but plant-based foods as well as animals, and that's just the facts. It's not debatable. The question that we're currently wrestling with is, do we want to eat animals based on the way animals are, factory raised and factory produced? And that's what we're really battling right now. It's really, I think less and less the argument is we're not designed to eat animals, or we're not, we've evolved beyond that, because biologically it's just simply not true. But it now becomes a debate of ethics and sort of personal values and morals. So if you're concerned about that, you definitely want to stay away from conventional meat. And you want to definitely make the choice of animals that get to graze and eat grass and have space and sunshine and air, as opposed to animals that don't. And that of course, that applies to the consumption of poultry, chickens, and eggs. It's a broad sweeping sort of personal ethic that you say, if I'm going to consume animals, or animal products as well, butter, it could be anything. I'm going to consume it from a source that I've possibly, if not, I think would be a great idea, have investigated. I think it's incredible. It says a lot about you as a consumer if you investigate the origins of, you think where the products that you consume, where they come from, and you understand where also they go. Like what is the sort of full cycle of a product? Where does what are the byproducts of producing anything and everything, and understanding the fullness, the full picture. It's so empowering. It helps you make better decisions. But when it comes to grass-fed, you definitely are heading in a direction that is more in integrity with how animals should at least exist before they're consumed, because it's more in line with, again, how a gazelle might exist, and before it's eaten by a lion, it's out roaming and it's doing its thing. Okay, fine. If you still don't like that, and that still disturbs you, the idea of eating an animal, killing an animal, which is what most people are really disturbed by, you then have to wrestle with that. And that becomes just a personal, obstacle. You have to decide if that obstacle is something you can work with, or it's enough to say, I'm just not interested in this. And then you have to decide if you can also accommodate your health needs and your nutrition needs with a vegetarian diet or plant-based diet, which again, I'm not arguing that you can't. There are a lot of people that are successful in ways that, by having that type of diet for certain periods of time. I don't know if it's indefinite, or I don't know if it's just for periods of time. But the bottom line is there is success that has been shown by healthy people eating those types of diets. But again, I don't know for how long, and I don't know under what conditions. And again, that's all something that has to be discovered by the end user. And that's just how it goes. So grass-fed over conventional, organic over conventional. And I think this really applies to pretty much anything that you're nutritionally consuming, to understand where does it come from, how's it being treated, do you want to participate, and if you don't, what are your choices? And again, this is because this is all about discovery and investigation. And again, people would like to tell you that food is only produced one way. That's not true. There are different farms that have different methods and they produce food different ways. So for someone who says, all chickens are produced one way, that's not true. Is most chicken produced one way? Yes. But not all. And there are ways for you to source ethically and humanely raised animals and have that shipped to you.
Yeah.
It's a modern world.
Yeah,
Amazon ships all over the world every day. You can get deer from Austria. You can get elk from Colorado.
Right.
It's all possible.
Right.
Just depends on what your personal values are, but
Yeah.
it's really up to you to sort of unpack those and do your due diligence, do your work to investigate.
Yeah. Step out of your bubble of conveniency just a bit.
100%, and also step out of your beliefs, because if you believe there's only one way to do something, you're going to be so fixed in that position that even if you are wrong, and I say wrong in the sense of you're making a mistake, what you believe is actually not accurate. If your belief is inaccurate, you are also going to pay for that as well. So the thing about being inflexible, the thing about being rigid, the thing about being stuck in a belief is that you are the winner and the loser. So it's far more beneficial to a person to be willing to explore all sides of an argument and see what they discover, than to be fixed on one side and not willing to listen to other perspectives, and by doing so actually create injury or dis-ease or some you can absolutely create chronic illness in yourself by being convinced that you're supposed to eat this or that.
Right.
You can absolutely create chronic illness from that thinking, and that's plant-based or meat. You can go either direction. There are people that have been convinced on both sides who have suffered the consequence of not being willing to consider all the science, all the possibility, all the facts.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the story.
Okay.